The Houston Dynamo parted ways with Paulo Nagamura as their head coach. The fallout continues. This week, General Manager Pat Onstad spoke to the media to give some insight on what went behind the decision. Also, we heard from interim head coach Kenny Bundy on what he's been instructed for the last 5 games. And we also heard from players of the Houston Dynamo, Captain Tim Parker, on what the players' responsibility is in all of this and what they can hope to take out of the last 5 games.
So for this episode, we're having, we kind of like cut them into 2 pieces for this week because we have a lot of information. We wanted to make it very digestible for your viewing and hearing pleasure. With you again, this is Laura Gomez, and as always, Victor Araiza. So just stay with us and take a look or take a listen to some of the reactions.
Yeah, it's tough. Decisions like that are tough to make for an organization, but we understand the causes and the roots of it, and I think it's time for us to kind of pick up and move forward and start gaining momentum and looking forward to the weekend. Yeah, I hope so. I definitely feel responsible probably in a little bit more ways than some other guys do because I was captain of the team for most of the year. So whenever someone gets fired and results aren't going your way, I think it falls a little bit more heavy on my shoulders because I consider myself a leader in that locker room. Yeah, Kenny's a great guy. He's brought great energy so far in the couple of days that we've been able to work with him, and like you said, we have 5 games left, so we're really just looking forward to building the momentum, and just playing good stuff. I think that's kind of the best feeling that we have to get as a team is just being confident and being able to play together. No, I don't necessarily think that it was necessarily between the coaches and the players. I think the players I think we had a really good relationship with Naga from day one when he came in here. He made it pretty clear in terms of how he wanted us to feel with him, with information that he was relaying to us, and how we were able to get information back to him. So he had an open door policy in that kind of manner. And like I said, I think it was just the moments in games that we didn't really take advantage of, and we weren't able to harness in and to realize to gain those points. Yeah, that 2018 team was definitely special. I think one thing that team had that I think I would love to try to implement here, and hopefully it'll come with time and belief, is just the belief to win. Go into every game and think that you can win that game, because those are some of the most important things, is that kind of belief. And I think that we've had that a lot of the year, throughout the year this year, but it's just the continued competitiveness to know that you can be in any game, especially in this league. When you're on a losing team, like unfortunately we have been this year, when the results haven't gone our way, there's an opportunity for you to showcase yourself to the GM here in Houston, to Pat, and to show him that you want to be here or you don't. And I think that that's something that we're definitely looking forward to seeing in these next couple of games, is guys putting together results, or guys putting together good performances, the team putting together results, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And I think part 1 and part 2, they kind of tied together because I was in preseason with these guys. So yes, there's some new players that have been added throughout the season. But I also am in the facility every day. So I have a relationship with all of the guys, at least so far as we know each other. We've spoken. So I think it's important. And I think that helps when something like this happens. And we have to step in with a very limited amount of time left in the season, but also until our next game. So the key for me is really them understanding what the structure is going to be, what the expectations are going to be, and what my goals are. So I think it's important that knowing me is great, but it helps in speeding that up. Yeah, my goal right now is to make us competitive, to gather momentum and end the season in a way that's positive. So I think for any of those conversations to happen would be selfish for me. It would be selfish of me, when my job is to make sure that I take care of these players and see this season out and end it in a positive way. It's a great question. I think for me, the first day, it's really important for them to understand that the expectations are for us to be competitive in these 5 games, and that there is going to be a structure and there is going to be an outline that I think will benefit the players to see some of these games out, to get the results that maybe we've dropped. I think the one thing that this team has done is they've competed. Had we dropped some results? Yes, but I think they've competed. And that is a piece that is really hard to gain to a team. So my job is to build a structure and an outline and maybe tweak a couple things that I've seen to get them over that little final hump, to get them those 3 points, to see out some of these tougher games. I think like always, players earn opportunities to play. And I think I've said this before when I was with Dynamo 2, it's not as easy as having 1 or 2 or 10 good games with Dynamo 2. There's a lot that plays into it. There's a lot that the club looks into that. So, coming in, looking at the roster, we'll see who steps up and wants to compete. I think that's what's the most important thing is with 5 games left, the competition of this group, it needs to continue to be intense. And I laid that out to the players today is that, the way I coach, it's about intensity and it's about competing and really fighting to be on that field. So the door is open. These guys have opportunities, so I think them hearing that and feeling that, I think it's exciting. But I also think that there are guys that are senior guys that also want that and see that and feel that. So the table's open for these guys. They can, whoever is going to compete and give us the best chance on the weekend will play. Yeah, and you've asked the question that I think is the most important. It's how the players feel, because we can talk about, how I feel or what I'd like to do, but my job is to make sure that they're put in the best situation to go out and compete for the fans and for themselves on the weekend. So to me, that's the main focus. And one priority for me is for them to get to understand who I am more. And on a more personal note, we've been doing individual meetings. And again, I want this to be very clear. It's been 1 day. So, we've probably tried to pack in 3 months worth of work in 15 hours yesterday. But I do think that one of my strengths is I have no problem spending all the time in the world, sitting down, answering questions, getting to know people, and making sure that they understand my job and my goal over the next 5 games is to put them in the best position, to put them in the best scenario. So all of the tactics and all of the little tweaks that we're going to make is to hopefully put them in a situation where they're more comfortable, they're a bit freer in their mind to go and express themselves on the weekend. And I think that's what we all want. Fans, coaching staff, the club. We want these players to feel when they step on the field, especially at home, that they have a clear mind and they can be themselves and they can compete, understanding that they're doing it together. So it's a lot. I mean, today we've got a number of meetings. Tomorrow we've got a number of meetings, individual meetings. We've got team meetings. We've got line meetings. All of these things to just open the door to make sure that they understand what's expected of them. I'm also a big believer in an open door policy where I like feedback. I like to know how they feel. Yes, I have clear ideas. And yes, at the end of the day, the decision is going to come down to me on who plays and how we play and things like that. But I don't think that that's a decision I can make without understanding how the guys are reacting to that information. So it's been a really big push over the last day and a half to make sure that they hear my voice personally, individually, and as a collective team.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. A lot of people have been asking why not let him finish the season out if he came to that conclusion. The reality is, we did come to that conclusion not that soon before this decision was finally made on Monday. But the big one is we want to start searching for a new coach, and I think with Paulo, the work he's put in here, the effort he's put in, his commitment to the club. If you go and start searching for a coach behind his back, I think that's the wrong message to send. And I think that's unfair to him. I think he was more than worthy for us to do this the right way. So unfortunately, with 5 games to go, we're going to make the switch. And now it's my job now to go try to find a coach to lead this group in 23. We're still pretty open at this point. We have some profiles and what we're looking for. But I think at this stage, Kenny's got an opportunity to show what he can do, but he is an interim. He knows that at this stage. He's got 5 games to show what he's capable of doing. And he's done a fantastic job with our second group. So we'll see what happens, but he's got a good staff behind him and got a lot of support. Yeah, I think for us, first and foremost, it is a results business, and I know it's a cliche, but the reality is we're dead last in the West. I don't feel our roster. We invested a fair amount of money in our roster, and Paulo was part of those decisions. He was he was on board with Sebastian Ferreira. He was on board with Hector Herrera. Zeka is a right back. There's a lot of guys here that we decided to bring in, and we spent some money to get these guys, and we don't feel like we're performing at that level. What I would say is he didn't lose the locker room. I still think like the guys were fighting for him. But for us, we were looking forward and trying to see some momentum going into the next year. And unfortunately, results just really weren't going our way. Yeah, I think we have a little bit more time than we did last year. It was definitely a bit of a rush, but I still think I don't regret hiring Paulo. I think Paulo's a very good coach, and I've been saying this to a few people, but if you look at, Jesse Marsh and Greg Berhalter, who are probably the two best coaches, young coaches anyways, at this stage in their careers, there's no disrespect to Bob and to Bruce, but they struggled in their first year, Jesse in Montreal and Greg over in Hammarby, but both of them are fantastic coaches. And I think that's one thing certainly on the criteria, I think for us, is that we'd like somebody with experience at the top level to kind of carry this group through. And one thing I've learned, Tom, I think in this seat and being here is the years of not being successful here is probably more difficult to overcome than I expected. It's been pretty difficult. It was, it's my decision clearly, but I'm also in constant communication with ownership, so they knew the thought process as we're going through this, as the season was developing. So they were aware of what was going on and had their opinion, so to speak, but in the end, it's my decision and the responsibility lies with me. Obviously when you're in this, if you've been here to HSP, where we work literally about 10 feet away from each other. So you're bumping into each other on a regular basis. You have small conversations and also scheduled conversations. So, once a week we would sit down and have a formal conversation and go through, the game plan, what little, sometimes a lot of just housekeeping things around the area, but there's been discussions in terms of if he needs help and what he needs help with and suggestions from us. And I think, that's for both, for Paulo, myself and Asher Mendelson, our technical director, for us to reflect back on. And could we have been more helpful? You'd have to ask Paulo that question. I like to think that we were trying to be helpful. And I think, it's difficult when you're in it as a head coach. I know I've been on coaching staffs. It's hard when things aren't going your way. You're not getting bounces. You're not getting calls. It's difficult, and sometimes to get out of that is tough. So, yeah, no, it's a fair question. Ultimately, it was a decision we didn't feel like there was momentum or we were moving in the right direction as a club, and ultimately that for us. It's the coach's job to try to get that momentum going, and we didn't see it happening. And our concern was that the way we were playing and the way we were going is that it was going to be tough to recover for next season. And as you'd mentioned and Paulo had mentioned and we'd all mentioned, it's going to take time here. But we felt like if we had to go down there and we start off on a downward spiral, it's going to be tough to get out of it quickly. Now, whether that's my personal thought process behind it doesn't mean it's the right one. And I think I've said this before, the decision lies with me. If we're in the same position next year, that's a big problem for me. I mean, that's my fault. It's not Paulo's fault. It's not Asher Mendelson's fault. It's my fault. So I think we want to try to get ahead of it and try to find the person we think can help continue to grow. And I have to give Paulo credit. I think every time someone gets let go, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't successful in some area. One thing we talked about was culture, and Paulo did a fantastic job changing the culture down here at the building. And for people who've been around this club, they say there's a definite different vibe down here, a positive one. And he worked hard at that. But for me, obviously, in the end, it's results on the field weren't going the right way. But he did a lot of hard work, and he was committed to this club, and I think he did a lot of good things for us. I think, like I said, we're 72 hours into it. The conversations I've had with Ted is that he wants to support the search. So at this stage, it'd be tough for me to answer. I haven't spoken to Bielsa and I haven't spoken to Tata, so I couldn't answer those two. While they're both fantastic coaches and I love the way both of them play, it's at this stage it's early on, so I couldn't answer that question. Certainly from a financial standpoint, that would probably end up coming in and being the highest paid coaches in the league, or close to what, some of the guys, some of the experienced guys are on. So it's a big financial commitment, but if we felt that was the right push, then that's when we go to ownership and see what they feel like. Yeah, well, that's a great question. And in terms of accountability, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, essentially that's what this is, and we're all accountable. I kind of touched on it earlier. If we're in this situation next year, I mean, I'm the one that has to hold my hand up, and I'm accountable, and I'm holding my hand up on this. There's things I'm sure I could have done better. I could have helped this. And I think everybody here, all the staff, all the players, we had a meeting this morning, and that was essentially the message, that these 5 games do matter because everybody's being evaluated, and that includes the staff, that includes, Kenny and his group, that includes, the executive group, myself, Nick Koba, Asher Mendelson. So we're responsible. This isn't Paulo's record. This is our club's record, and that's the issue, and that's what we have to try to find a way to make it better.
This is obviously a developing story with the Houston Dynamo. We'll continue to follow it throughout the offseason as the coaching search continues. Who do you want the Houston Dynamo to hire as the head coach? You can hit us up on Twitter at Victor Araiza, at Laura Gomez News, at The Striker News. And give us your input as we continue to find out what the requirements are of this position and where the Houston Dynamo are heading in 2023.
Until next time, Laura Gomez and Victor Araiza. Bye.